For long, we've spoken about how Telangana is a surveillance state, in a sense, a police state. Now, a police app which had private details, personal details that was gathered of citizens has been breached. The data has been leaked, and we have no idea who's taken this data, what they're going to do with it, and what the repercussions of this can be for common citizens like you and me. Joining me to explain all these aspects is a hacktivist and somebody who's worked with cyber laws and digitization for a long time. Srinivas Kodali, he's written a detailed article that you can read on our website, thenewsminute.com. And if you like the work we do, if you like us to bring more such stories, then do consider supporting us. Become a paid TNM subscriber today. How? You can scan this QR code or you can click on the link that you can see in the description below. Srinivas Kodali, thank you so much for joining us. And you've written a very, very important article that was published in the News Minute just a couple of days ago. My first question to you is very basic for lay people like me. Do explain what this data leak is, where it came from, and what it means.
I think it's beyond a data leak. There was a larger breach of entire systems. There were at least 3 to 4 systems. One was an app called Hawkeye, which was a citizen-facing app that the Telangana Police uses, asking people to use this app to register FIR or to collect data of their tenants for police verification or to collect information of their maids, anybody for whom they want to get a police verification done. And also, if you are a woman and you want to use a source app, so the app is more of a citizen-facing app, and there was a complete breach of this app. And there were breaches of another flagship app called TS Cop, which is a policing app that the Telangana Police, every constable in the Telangana Police has access to. And this is the app that they use for facial recognition, for fingerprint recognition, to verify identity details, to check CCTV camera footage. So it's like an app where all forms of policing has been digitized. And beyond that, there were a breach of the Telangana Police SMS system. So technically, you could send SMSs to somebody posing as a message from the police. So it wasn't just like a small data breach; it was larger breach of entire networks and systems.
And for the common man, if you can explain, because we've spoken about how Telangana Police, Hyderabad Police particularly, has been gathering critical information, personal information, even in some cases, of citizens. So when a database of this nature has been breached, what are the repercussions for common citizens?
See, if you look at India's digitization trajectory, and also especially with the large scale building of surveillance infrastructures in India, a lot of this has started post Bombay attacks. The Ministry of Home Affairs, with the intelligence failures that took place during Bombay attacks, tried to modernize policing in India. They allotted a lot of budget for this. They gave money to all state departments to digitize all of their FIRs, their charge sheets, and they interconnected all of these police stations through what they call CCTNS, crime and criminal tracking networks and systems, which was like the phase 1 of the project. And the phase 2 of the project is connecting the police systems with other parts of the criminal justice system, which is prisons, your forensics labs, and courts. That project is called the Integrated Criminal Justice System. So at large, the government of India has been building these giant networks and databases for tracking criminals and to surveil criminals. Okay, but what happened in Telangana is beyond criminals. The police in Telangana has been surveilling every individual, pretty much every resident in the state. So Telangana has done this important survey called the Intensive Household Survey, or rather the Samagra Kutumba Survey. Okay, so intensive household survey. So every household they went and collected like some 90 parameters about every individual in the household. All of this data was shared with the police. So what the police in Telangana essentially built up over a period of time since 2014, part of this modernization efforts is 360-degree profiles on every resident of Telangana. But it goes beyond Telangana because these are interconnected networks. So every police department has access to each other's systems, right? Nationally. So if you have access to Telangana systems, you can access FIRs from Tamil Nadu or Delhi too, because everything's been digitized. It's not just a breach of one police departments anymore. You have access to an entire network of systems. So, to what scale this impact, this breach or the network breach has happened, and to whom, which other police departments this has impacted is unknown. Because while the Telangana police have brought all these systems down to actually do a forensic analysis now, we won't know if this goes beyond Telangana. Because the hacker who was mentioned, at least when he posted it on breach forums, he said we're going to target Delhi next, right? So the scale of it could be much larger, and to what extent people had access to this information is unknown, and whether it was only this individual who has publicly posted that he had access to these systems, or some unknown actors who had rogue access to these systems for a long time, because these systems have been in place for a decade. And if some threat actor had all access to it but never published or never claimed we had access to it, right? So it's like a huge breach in that terms where, and in terms of impact, we are not sure. We can never be sure. It's the police who has to tell us what was breached, what was the scale of this breach. They don't even tell us what they have in the first place.
I understand that you don't want to speculate, but just to make our viewers understand the seriousness of what we're talking about, uh, who could that, what are the extremes that could happen in this scenario? Who could the hacker be? How could this information be misused if it falls in the hands of antisocial elements or foreign actors? We don't even know who they are.
So, I mean, if you take this in the context of the recent intelligence scandal that's being investigated by the Telangana High Court and the Telangana Police itself, I think the threat came within the institution. So you're collecting so much information about people, and you have given access to every police official. So now the police officials, any constable can search my personal details and can use it in different ways. He can also sell this information, share it with political parties, use it for personal reasons, to stalk people, to settle scores, to even get into threaten businessmen. And all of this happened with some rogue intelligence officials misusing a lot of these intelligence tools at their disposal, right? And that investigation is still underway. We don't know at what length that happened. But if you look at the app in itself, the app also has access to everybody's call data records. They have certain functionalities called CDAT, which I believe is called Data Analytics Toolkit, which they use to track ex criminals. And they also have location of all cell tower data, including call data records, which they routinely access to identify if somebody was at a crime scene. So if there is a crime on the ground, the first thing they access is CCTV footage and call data records. So I think the threat is more internal on how this all information was misused, and we definitely have some evidence that this information was misused to spy on the opposition, to spy on lawyers, to spy on judges, right? But beyond that, there was a lot of harassment. If you see Hyderabad, cops would routinely stop people on the streets, ask their Aadhar number, ask their facial recognition for photos, ask take their fingerprints. It's like, oh, you look like a criminal. I want to check if you have a criminal record, right? And that's what this whole app was. You just gave them all the criminal records and set the police to go everywhere to check who's a criminal and who's not.
I want to touch upon something you mentioned earlier. You said that there was a list of questions asked in a survey carried out by the government. Can you tell us what kind of details were gathered? What kind of personal details? And were people made aware? The people that they were speaking to, were they made aware of what the purpose of the survey even was?
Okay. So, a lot of India's digitization efforts with Aadhar and other digitization efforts, like, all happened part of censuses. The Telangana survey was a form of a census too. It also happened in AP, for example, where they called it the Smart Pearl Survey or Praja Sadharika Survey in 2016, where they actually did EKYC of everybody in AP. They geolocated every resident because they used tabs. Not the case in Telangana, though. So these were all censuses. And to actually say what these systems are, from a very technical term, we call them applied cybernetics. Okay, cybernetics being an entire branch of control systems and information theory which you use to digitize. So, in simple terms, we've been using sensors to collect a lot of data, and that's what happened. But all of this information, usually in census too, also goes to the Ministry of Home Affairs. Your census commissioners are usually, the census itself is done by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Except for the census, you have the Census Act, and they have protections for privacy on how the information will be used and who gets to access it and how it's used, right? In this case, there was no such law. People were kind of scared to participate in it because it happened right after formation of Telangana. Nobody knew what this was. Just like Aadhar, right? You're forced into it. You didn't know what it was. You were asked to give your data, and it continues to happen with other systems, with Digiyatra, for example. Again, facial recognition. So all these systems are very interconnected. You enter in any end of the system, you'll come out of another, because it's so integrated. You're vertically integrating all these systems and you're centralizing them. So this is something that the digital rights community and civil society in India has been fighting against, right? It's that please do not centralize so much information in one setup, because anybody who accesses it will have so much of information and it could always be misused, and that's what is happening right now.
Can you tell us about who was developing these softwares? Was it done in-house, and was it given out to somebody else? And what was the process of verifying, vetting who has access to this kind of database?
Okay, so when you go to software development in itself, there are institutions within the government, like the National Informatics Center, and you have advanced computing centers like the Center for sorry, CDAC, which is the Center for Development of Advanced Computing. So the many such centers. So if you see like advanced computing, facial recognition, and all forms of these surveillance technologies, they're usually built either by CDAC or by NIC, and like different police departments in the country, Tamil Nadu Police, Delhi Police, have outsourced it to different agencies in the past. In case of Telangana, so it's a mix of government and private. So it's public-private partnership. That's a model that we have been following since the 90s. So the model essentially requires you that you somehow give contracts to private companies to help promote the domestic IT industry in Hyderabad. So if you're witnessing a lot of these systems that were built in Telangana, why Telangana is because we have one of the domestic IT industries, and these companies are building these systems in Telangana first so that they can go supply it to other police departments within India or outside India, right? So that's the setup at play. There are many companies, private companies, that have supplied the software to the Telangana Police. There's Vinci IT Services, which built the TS Corp. There is Tech Datum, which provides geolocation services to the police. I believe some of it is also internal. The Telangana Police has an internal digital team. So it's a mix of setup with a lot of tools that are being integrated. So it's not entirely government or entirely private. But the way this project has been designed, the way the code base has been built, right? I don't think there was good amount of checks and balances in place in procurement processes, which led to a private company like Vinci IT Services building or writing code that is not secure enough. In terms of software development, a young programmer who may not have an idea of how to build secure software. You would need experienced programmers to do that, and they are usually I mean, when you go by the market economics, you will have to pay higher wages to a experienced programmer. So it's easy to make more money hiring young programmers, making them builders, right? So there's a fundamental problem in how this whole setup itself works, which is why you do security audits, which is why there is a whole demand for data protection laws, and nothing was followed in all of this setup.
Uh, what about other states? I understand that Telangana is more of a surveillance state than many other states. But is there a probability or possibility of similar attacks on other states? Have they happened already? And how vulnerable is our data? stored in government websites like these?
To be very frank, our systems have always been vulnerable because there have never been checks and balances in place to look at these scenarios, right? The last time a serious conversation that happened over security practices was with Aadhar, with all the giant leaks that we were pointing out on how you're centralizing information, and the scale of this information leaks was also very high, right? So certain amount of security protections were recommended, but that were never enforced. I mean, you can look at the amount of data that comes back into elections, right? So all of this data that they have collected for census has also been used in elections. It's just not systems being unsecure, but it's also no access mechanisms in place internally. So as I was pointing out with the police, when they have access to so much data and information, we don't know who's accessing it, who's and how they are using it, right? So you have like so many different agencies, and when it came to surveillance tools like Pegasus, nobody could figure out which agency in those 10 surveillance agencies centrally within India was responsible for it. So like this is a giant mess. Nobody knows what information is out there. We probably know more than what the Telangana police is doing, because I kind of pointed out how the Telangana police was collecting information of everybody who's checking into hotels, right? This is done under a very colonial act called the Sarais Act of 1867, which came right after 1857 War of Independence, where the British wanted to hunt and hide people who were hiding, who were runaway, who ran away after the mutiny that they have done. So you're continuing those age old colonial laws, except now you have given it a certain kind of volume, scale with digitization, and which is where the fundamental right to privacy law, privacy judgment comes in, right? Your Data Protection Act needs to adhere to give a certain amount of control and protections for people. That's not happening, and in the current Data Protection Act, which will be enforced now, gives wide exemptions for police to do all of this. Okay, so because you are giving them all sorts of exceptions, even if there is a breach, you go arrest a random teen. I'm calling it a random teen because I don't think there is a scenario where a 20-year-old kid has done this. Okay, yes, their systems are very poorly secured. A 20-year-old kid could do this, but if you design your system so bad, I think the responsibility lies on the police and not a teenager, right? That even with all sorts of warnings that have been given against the police, there's a pending petition in the Telangana High Court against how they were using facial recognition on normal people, where the questions of privacy have been repeatedly raised. Every time we raise these questions, we are told we are ignorant, we don't know what we are talking about. But the very fact is, we are showing you these breaches again and again, and showing you how bad and how large these scale are, right? So no matter we bring out arguments on how this is bad for the citizenry, nothing's changing, because at the end of the day, there is a system that's in place which promotes this policing order, right? Like people are happy to see facial recognition. People are really happy with the violence that's happening that on other people, and that, I mean, I'm talking about the caste system here. At the end of the day, until we have a social change there, this is going to be there.
And finally, earlier you did mention that there was a warning that Delhi could be the next target. Why should our viewers outside of Hyderabad, outside of Telangana, also be worried about what's happened? And second, what measures can be put in place to make sure that other databases are not hacked similarly?
So in terms of how this might happen elsewhere, Telangana, Hyderabad is a experimental hub where you have built all of these systems as a showcase. So we have this police academy, the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel Police Academy in Hyderabad, where all the new IPS grads are trained, right? So the Telangana police actually brings a lot of these IPS officials, shows them what they are doing, how they have modernizing policing. They bring a lot of other police officials who come to the police academy for trainings, right? They show them Telangana as a model scenario. and and the MHA actually helped build all of this. It's not then entirely built by the Telangana Police alone, right? So you are showing something as this is what every other police department should be building across the country. And we also have scenarios where other states, like Haryana, for example, are saying we are going to follow the Telangana model, where we are going to interlink everything. We are going to build these giant systems and build giant buildings, the command and control centers, right? So there are many command and control centers that were inaugurated in India around 2022, and they all house these kind of systems. They were built either part of the smart city setup or with money from the MHA. So all of these systems are equally vulnerable, if not vulnerable from third parties, vulnerable within, right? On how rogue police agents and intelligence officials can misuse and cause harm to democratic actors. So I think it's been long due, even though when the right to privacy judgment was announced, part of the Data Protection Act considerations, we were always been pushing for surveillance reforms, right? We have a data protection law right now, but with no surveillance reforms. And this country has seen over the last decade how surveillance can be misused, how surveillance agencies can be misused, right? So the amount of information that they are collecting, when targeted, when breached, can cause harms that can't be really predicted. I mean, we have seen scenarios where data breaches affecting elections, data being used to target people. We don't know what sort of dark trades can emerge. And this essentially shows that the police in itself has no control over their systems. And for all the talk they do about cybersecurity, India's computer emergency response team, which is the nodal cybersecurity agency, has been silent. This is a major breach, and this is not the first time this has happened. We have seen the Tamil Nadu's facial recognition breach. So, if system after systems, if this is happening, what are these agencies are even doing? Like the Computer Emergency Response Team was removed from RTI over the last term. I believe it was 2 years ago, and CERT in itself has been forcing a lot of policies that are bad for people's privacy. For example, they have been telling that everybody who provides VPN services in India has to collect people's identity details, right? So these policies are not meant to protect people. They are being designed to actually collect more information, and this is all economic, this is also political and then social, right? So there are large scale social reasons for all of this, and it's not going to change overnight unless people realize how this is all interconnected and we push for surveillance reforms. I hope that is something that we can work towards over the next 5 years term in the new governments that have come in place.
Right. Thank you so much for speaking to us. You've been, vocal about data protection, cyber laws, and we trust you to keep us ahead on the developments of this story as well. Thank you.
Thank you.